All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we recap everything that happened on a Saturday, a work day for the Niners, though I was in Palo Alto covering Cal and Stanford in the pregame. Let's talk about everything that happened in Ninerland, including Kyle Shanahan speaking. And, of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out, Emeryville, Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you 2 locations, Corte Madera and Emeryville, and a third location coming soon in Petaluma. And we should tell you all, we're going to have the Krug Show meet and greet on December 7th. At Pig and a Pickle in Corte Madera. So stop by. This was a picture from the last Krug Show meet and greet. Stop by, have some brisket, have a beer, watch some games. It's during the bye week, so you're not going to miss any of the Niner games. It's really the only week I can do it is during the bye week because I'm at all the games, home and on the road. Even we traveled to some of the games. So this was the best week to do it. So join us December 7th at Pig and a Pickle during the bye week. They're in. It says it's in Emeryville, but it's actually not in Emeryville. We're going to have to get that corrected, Kev. Oh, my gosh. It's in, we'll stop sharing that. It's in Corte Madera. It's in Corte Madera, and we will be there in Corte Madera. I'm glad I caught that before we put that out. All right, so we're not going to be, it says there on the flyer Emeryville, but it's not going to be in Emeryville. It'll be in Corte Madera on December 7th. Check it out. And thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. All right. Saturday in Ninerland, Kyle Shanahan speaks. And usually it's a Friday. So it's a Friday schedule on Saturday. We'll share the screen and share from Coach Yak's Twitter account. Here's Kyle Shanahan talking about the only topic that anybody wants to talk about right now, and that's Brandon Aiyuk. Here it is.
So is he medically cleared by you guys, or?
No, he's not. Yeah, there's some markers he's got to pass.
Do you think that he's motivated? Does the organization feel that he's motivated to come back and play this season?
I don't think that really matters. I think everyone might have a different opinion of that. I known with the contract stuff that happened back in July, I knew it was going to be a while for him to come back. I was hoping to get him back around this time, and we've kind of been going about that, like coaching the team. I don't really deal much with injured players. I was told a few weeks ago he was getting closer, and we haven't made progress in that way so far. So from my standpoint, I'm just waiting for him to get back to practice.
Why his guarantee was voided?
No, I can't.
Sorry, maybe it's the same question I could hear, but you want to get into specifics. So what happened in July to cause that voiding?
I'm not going to get into specifics of that. There was a number of things from July that to me is more of a business side, dealing with lawyers and stuff and contracts and stuff that is really not my area of expertise.
Obviously, the team felt, and you felt good enough to give a very large contract not very long ago. Is there disappointment that it's gotten to this with Brandon and the 49ers?
Yeah, of course. I've been coaching over 20 years, and I've never been in a situation where a contract's been voided. So it was extremely unusual to me.
And personally, I mean, I imagine you were very in support of him getting a new contract. We know how weird that negotiation was. But do you feel let down by the situation?
I'm not really there yet. Like, I know everyone got a lot of information yesterday. That was information that I found out in July and kind of dealt with it then. And to me, the contract stuff and guarantees and things like that is really, it's irrelevant to my relationship with the player and my relationship with our team and what we're trying to do this year. I know I went through that stuff and talked to him a lot about it back in July. But since July, it's been all about this season and hoping he would get healthy, and he's been working to get healthy, and I've been waiting for him to come back when he's healthy.
Is it realistic to expect a player to come back and play once his guarantees have been voided?
I don't know. I've never been in that situation, so I really don't think about that. I just think about people coming back when they're healthy.
People look at that mechanism and say it's very unlikely he would be on the team next year. How likely do you view that as a possible scenario?
What happened in July, to me, in my opinion, doesn't have anything to do with the future. That had to do with circumstances that, to me, were out of a coach's hand. Best way I can explain it, when it comes to business matters and lawyers and contracts and things like that. When it comes to the future of this, I would love for BA to be here. I would love for him to get healthy and get back to really helping us out and being a part of this team. We haven't had that in a little bit, and I still hold out hope that he can get there. but he obviously hasn't gotten there yet.
So there you go. Wow. Lot there. Lot to unpack there. Lot to unravel there. Kyle Shanahan earlier today in Santa Clara. Okay, first things first. The 49ers are a corporation. And like all corporations, there's somebody whose job it is to think about what is the corporation's exposure, financial exposure, what is their potential liability. There's somebody whose job it is to measure that. That's not Kyle Shanahan's job. Kyle Shanahan's job is to call plays and sequence plays and find the right players and coaches and win games. That's his job. His job is not to measure risk and that kind of thing. As soon as I think the Niners regretted that contract even before they signed it. But even after they signed it, they clearly regretted it. And there may be a split in the organization, even though Shannon's never going to step to the podium. You know what? There was really a split between ownership and the front office on this. And we actually wanted to do this, but you know what? It was, they decided to do that, and I'm an employee at the end of the day. But I mean, that probably would have been more honest and forthright and straightforward than this kind of tap dance of what everybody thought and when they thought it and how they thought it and what they think and what really happened and this and that. I think the 49ers definitely, I mean, this goes beyond football. This is just about life. And what I would say to one of my children, and I would say to any of my friends, every person to a business has value or cost. And you might have tremendous value and that outweighs your cost. Or you could have tremendous cost that outweighs your value. And when a wide receiver who you were kind of lukewarm on giving a contract to blows out 3 ligaments, now he doesn't have the same value. And that's just reality. And so they're looking for a reason to say goodbye. And he gave them one. And the fact that he's not challenging it, this is you can come up with a bunch of scenarios that you want, but this is business. People don't leave money on the table unless they feel like they can't get it. He obviously feels like if there was some kind of a grievance with the NFLPA that he would lose. It was probably clearly outlined. The parameters of his contract were probably clearly outlined, and he's probably clearly he's probably clearly not followed his contract. So he knows he's going to lose. So he knows he doesn't have the upper hand. So he's willing to say, yeah, you can walk away. But for the 49ers, it seems like an overwhelming win. They were looking, I'll say this, if you're working for a company and you're making tons and you're producing more, then you're fine. You could probably park horizontally across the parking spaces. You could probably take a dump on the console, on the countertop. They would probably be like, hey, you know what? We needed that there. You could pretty much do whatever you want if you're making some company absurd amounts of money. Let's use Howard Stern as an example. He made Sirius XM a ton of money initially because he had a huge radio and television audience in the New York and in Washington I-95 corridor. And so they launched their whole sports platform with their whole Sirius XM platform, period, not sports, beyond sports. Obviously he's not sports. But part of like Mad Dog Radio and all that, the launching of Sirius XM was launched with Howard as the big linchpin. Oh, come get Howard. Go get Howard. Well, he was an asset. He was worth, were they paying him millions of dollars? Sure. But he was worth millions more to them. And so he was an asset. But now fast forward to 2025 and everybody's listened to a podcast. And now Howard Stern is still there at Sirius XM, but he's got this bloated freaking salary. And suddenly, guess what? He's financial exposure. He's a liability. And guess what happened? They said goodbye. So it's really no different. If you're working for a company and your cost to them is greater than your value to them, then you better know the fine print in your contract and what you can and can't do, because if you step one step outside there and they don't have to pay you, they won't, because it's big business and that's the way it's done. So, Aiyuk, should have known after tearing up his knee that they would be looking for ways to get out of that commitment, because who wouldn't? He's not worth that money. Probably wasn't worth it originally, and he definitely is not worth it now. He may never play again, and if he does, he may be significantly diminished. That was a devastating injury that he suffered. But then this whole presser today brings up almost more questions than it does answers. What specifically led to this? Don't want to discuss that. Well, then we can't really evaluate it. And if you don't want to discuss it, we're just there to speculate. I think the Niners wanted to get out of this contract, and he gave them a reason. And it's big business, and they're going to use his. I don't think Shanahan cooled on him, or the organization, or Lynch cooled on him. I think the money people see the exposure, see the liability, are looking for a way out, and he gave them a way out, and they're going to take it. Period. And everybody else is just going to have to fall in line, because you know what? At the end of the day, Lynch and Shanahan are employees. They're high-level employees, but they're employees. They work for Jed. They work for the family. There's some person in charge of the purse strings, probably Parag, who said, hey, look, we got an avenue to save Jed $20 million, and we're going to take it. And Brandon Aiyuk, whatever, you're getting down the road. I mean, he's, I don't even, I think it's all about the money. Deion Sanders sung about it. It must be the money. It's always the money. It's always the money. And don't think for a second that just because you're seeing, a 49er team go up exponentially in value as far as their Forbes, on a piece of paper value, and say, oh, look, they're worth $6-7 billion. So what? That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. It does matter, and they will realize that value on the back end, but it doesn't matter as far as the present. And it really comes down to what can Aiyuk do for you? And I think they were looking to get out, and he gave them an avenue, and he knows he's in the wrong, which is why he's not going to challenge it. And we'll see if the Players Association tries to push him to challenge it, or if this is the final word. As far as the timing, people asking, what about the timing on this? Why is the timing? Why now? And I don't know about that. That's a good one. But I mean, that's why I say it brings up more questions than answers. It's like, well, what about all these interviews that Lynch and Shanahan have been doing? Oh, I just see him outside my window. He's getting better. This is all the while they knew that they took away all of his guarantees in July. And if you take away a player's guarantees, isn't it pretty much just marching him to the door? Everything else is done except for opening it and closing it. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that when next time there's a break in the action, when there's a good time to trade Aiyuk, they'll be trading him. They'll be moving on or cutting him, whatever. They'll be parting ways with him. Most likely cutting, sounds like, but who knows? I don't think there's a future. I mean, and to talk about it like, well, you never know. It's, we'll have to see how the future goes. Really? You're going to take away all the guarantees in his deal, and he's going to stick around? So obviously this thing is headed for some kind of an official divorce. But why now? Why now? Why November 21st, 22nd? Why this weekend? Is it any way tied to Ricky Pearsall? I can't believe it would be, but they did draft Pearsall, and he is coming back. And now you've got, technically you've got a position filled. I kind of wonder on that. Could it be about the return of Pearsall? That seems kind of arbitrary. It seems like, does that really change the equation that much? It is weird to do it on a Saturday, Friday news dump window. It really reeks of, we don't want to talk about this. We want to, we want to bury this. This is what you do when you want to bury something. You do it Friday of near the Thanksgiving weekend. I mean, it just seems like they're putting it in that Friday news dump window because they want to bury it. At the same time, I do think it's an overwhelming positive for the football team, because you're getting off of the financial commitment to a player who's broken and may never play again, who doesn't have a great attitude, it doesn't seem, and doesn't seem like he wants to be on this team, and hasn't for a while. I mean, Brandon Aiyuk kind of begged for this as well. I mean, you're in this, you're doing a podcast, and you're telling people that your dream is to play with Jaden Daniels when you're on the 49ers and your quarterback's Brock Purdy? I mean, you don't think that's a slap at Brock Purdy? You don't think that's a slap at the 49ers? I kind of took it as such. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Brock's always going to take the high road. The Niners are never going to get into some pissing match with Brandon Aiyuk over a podcast episode, but that couldn't have gone over too well. And then you kind of wonder about the Brock Purdy thing and the relationships he had with his teammates. McCaffrey described him as gone. Brock Purdy didn't, when he was asked about, wide receivers during Brandon's holdout, he was like, well, I believe in Lynch and Shanahan they'll get somebody in here. It was like, he wasn't like, man, that's my guy, man. We got to sign my guy. That's my number one guy. I got to have him. It was nothing like that. It was like, hey, I got confidence in Kyle. I got confidence in John. They'll get the right receivers in here. Totally. I mean, not necessarily undercutting your guy, but not necessarily going to bat. So you kind of I always wondered about the relationship between Brock and Aiyuk, even though Brock always says, oh yeah, that's my guy. I love him. Really? I mean, if you loved him, wouldn't you have said, man, I got to have this guy? And instead you're like, anybody Lynch and Shanahan gets will suffice. We'll be good. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But the timing, could it be linked to the Ricky Pearsall return? And him getting out there and getting comfortable? I don't know. That seems kind of odd. The Niners are going to have to go receiver now, probably in the first 3 rounds. Maybe this is why, they didn't make a trade, because they knew they've got now 3 major needs between D tackle or D line, let's just say, offensive tackle, and now wide receiver. So maybe they thought, 3, we need to preserve our draft capital. And then, if there's going to be cap ramifications on this year, maybe they looked at this year. That's just another reason to have this be kind of a correct the books kind of a year with all the dead cap. And now you're mixing in this at the end as well. And if there's cap ramifications that impact this year's cap, maybe this is the better year to take a hit there. So, I mean, that's going to be interesting to see exactly how, do they release him before June 1st? They release him after June 1st? There's, Dave Lombardi outlined pretty clearly on his Twitter today the difference in the financial breakdown if they do that before or after June 1st. The other big question is, what does this do to the impact Juwan Jennings? And some could look at this and say, now Jennings is much more likely to stay. But it also could be that the Niners are just out of the wide receiver business altogether, and they're just going to go young and try to turn the thing over. That will be interesting. As far as, Shanahan also said, hey, he was asked, have you talked to him? He's like, no, I haven't talked to him, and make it seem like they didn't have the warmest of relationships. We saw the whole thing with the shorts this summer. Who knows? He was asked a couple different questions about what happened, what led to this. And he's like, hey, we're just not talking about it. We're not discussing it. So who knows? That could be they're taking the high road. That could be that, there's a story that has 2 sides to it, and they don't want their side out there, or to somehow make Brandon run and tell his side and start talking about this. Maybe they just want it to go away. I don't know. I'm not sure how they're looking at this, but that's another angle on this thing. But how does this impact Juwan Jennings? And then there are a lot of people pointing to the whole, hey, Nick Bosa trained away, and they have no problem with that, but they have a big problem with Aiyuk not showing up to the facility and not. Yeah, but it has more to do. I mean, let's be honest. When you have a job, if you're having positive communication and the communication that the employer expects versus, incorrect communication that would go against what the employer's desires are. So, and who's to say what that is, right? I mean, that's totally arbitrary and subjective. Who knows? You may have a culture where, you got to check in 3 times a day, and that's the culture. And if that's the culture, that's the culture. Like, if you don't like it, there's the door, right? The culture could be check in 3 times a year. The culture could be never check in, but just always answer your emails. The culture could be we don't even send emails, but if I text you, you text me back. Whatever it is, whatever it is. The team is basically citing some form of lack of communication. So, if their regular communication is that he's in a certain meeting or communicates on a certain text strand and he's not doing it, then you're not living up to, what the team is asking. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm not saying the team's for sure in the right. The team, could absolutely be just cutthroat about this. They could have, as soon as he got hurt, they could have been like, you know what? He's no more use to us, especially at that price tag. Anything that he does to violate his deal, let's note. And if it gets to a certain point, let's get out. If we think we can get out, that an independent arbiter would look at this and say, you know what? They win. You violated this. Once we feel like we can get out and we've got the upper hand, let's do it. And I think that's what they're doing. This is big money. And by the way, Brandon, if he had done literally nothing wrong, if this is all, the big bad evil Niners and doing this to an innocent Brandon Aiyuk who just wanted to be a Niner, and it's just he's just beside himself that this has all happened. I mean, I don't know if I believe that. You know what I mean? I don't know if I believe that. That is hard to believe. And then I'll say this: the reason that I kind of feel like I know that Aiyuk is in the wrong here as far as violated the contract, because it is big business. And the same reason that the 49ers want to protect themselves against that significant payout, Brandon should have every bit, if not more, urgency in protecting every dollar that he's earned and has come in his way. And the fact that he's willingly walking away from money at a time where this is a guy who leans on his body. And has his body ever been in a worse spot than it is right now? Probably not. So we'll see. I mean, he could have made a horrible calculation. And then, of course, there's the people who are asking, hey, is Adam Peters tampering? Well, he doesn't have to necessarily tamper, directly or indirectly, but he could say, hey, man, by the way, just free yourself up and give me a call. Free yourself up and give me a call. And maybe that was enough motivation for a guy like Aiyuk to say, hey, you know what? I don't care what I got to do. I just need a fresh start. I got to get out of here. And I doubt there's probably any rules against, a guy like Peters just saying, hey, you know what? If that day comes that you're free, call me. That's all he really needs to say. And the rest of it, let your agent work out. You've got a landing spot. And so maybe Aiyuk knows he's got a landing spot and kind of just decided, you know what? I'm impatient and I want out now. It was going to be very, very messy for the 49ers because they were going to have to decide, do we play this guy? Do we play him? Then what if he gets hurt again? Then we're on the hook for more money and then we can't move him. Some people believe that the 49ers were looking at this situation and were saying to themselves, you know what? If we trade Aiyuk right now, all we're getting back is a pick. We can't win, last year they couldn't win with a pick in the 26th draft or something. That wasn't going to help them. So maybe they decided to sign Aiyuk to an extension. And with the plan being you get a real good year out of him in his prime. And then maybe he ups his value. And at the end of the year, you trade him for a first round pick and you get down the road. I kind of think that might have been the plan. Hey, let's get the guy signed instead of trading him to Pittsburgh or trading him to Cleveland or one of these for a third round pick or Amari Cooper. Could you imagine if they trade him for Amari Cooper? Amari Cooper's out of football. He's retired. I mean, that's just that talk about you want nothing? Here's Amari Cooper. Now, it was Amari Cooper and a pick, but I mean, I'd much rather have a higher pick and you keep Amari Cooper. But I mean, they could have had, let's say they could have had a receiver and some pick, and instead, they're going to wind up with nothing here. But I mean, you could have traded him, and maybe the plan was to sign him, use him for the year, and then trade him the next year. And then at least you get one more year and one more bite of the apple of trying to win the Super Bowl with a good, a good solid receiver, veteran receiver. But then on the back end, you don't have to deal with that. Now if that was the plan, that was a gamble and they lost. They rolled the dice and they lost, if that was the plan. But otherwise, I mean, what were the options? Trade him for a pick. Okay, then you wouldn't have been as good. Would have hurt your football team. I don't think they wanted to do that. And then, so if all they got was a pick, if they got a marginal replacement player and a pick, that didn't help them that year. And so they decided to keep him. And I really do think that they were, the report from Nick Wagner from ESPN was that, hey, they wanted to trade him and would have traded him in that offseason had he not been hurt. Yeah, no, I really believe that. I think they were going to get what they could out of him and then put him on the market and try to trade him in the next year. And then, of course, the injury derailed the whole thing. But as far as what happened in July, we don't know. And, maybe the next shoe to drop is Aiyuk to come out and say, hey, this is what happened in July. I'd said this, they did that. But that's when they decided to void it. But then, of course, what about all the interviews since? What about all the questions and answers since? What about all the misdirection since? I mean, you could argue that the duo who runs the team has been lying to us all year about him because they've known that they bought out all of his guarantees. I mean, isn't that pretty much almost a slam dunk? He's not going to be here. And then it's like, well, wait a second. If you really did knock out his guarantees and he's not going to be here, then if you put him on the field at all and he got hurt, wouldn't there be potentially something that would prevent you from trading him? So maybe playing him becomes a liability. Now it's like we can't play him because then we can't move him. So I don't know. It's we got the Niners side of it, except for actually the story. We don't know what it was that Aiyuk did specifically in July. There had to be some significant thing that happened in July that made them void the guaranteed money on his contract. Failure to fulfill contractual obligations. I mean, could you imagine if it was something like really ticky-tack? Like, hey, you got to do all team functions. And the first team function was a barbecue at Shanahan's house, and you weren't at the barbecue. And you're you've now broken the contract, and you've lost $20 million. Bro, should have gone to the barbecue. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, could you imagine if it was something, we don't know. We don't know what the fine print of his contract. For all it said, for all we know, it said he had to go to Shanahan's house for the barbecue for the families at the beginning of the year because it was a team event. He didn't go. And when he didn't show up at that barbecue, he'd broken the terms of his contract and he lost $20 million. Bro, should have gone to the BBQ. Should have gone, man. That's an expensive barbecue to miss. I'm just joking, of course, but I mean, that could be, we don't know. We don't know what he did in July to violate the terms of his contract, but obviously it was significant because they voided it. But does it have to be significant, or was it, the fact that he's not challenging it makes you think that he's guilty, of course, of whatever they're saying voided the contract. Because I mean, in anything else, any other explanation doesn't make sense. Don't tell me he's mad and this is that. No, come on. This is business. We're talking about millions of dollars. You're not just, well, I was pissed, I was this, I was that. No. He willingly walked away from millions of dollars. So there had to be a legitimate, solid reason, you would think. So there you go. Aiyuk is no longer a Niner, he is a Niner, but it sounds like he's headed towards a path where he'll no longer be a Niner. Will we ever find out the answer on this one? Will we ever get the true story? I don't know. I mean, will Aiyuk at some point speak out about what's going on? Possibly. What does this mean for JJ? Will JJ come back? I don't know, but I do think it means that the 49ers are going to be in the market for a receiver probably on day 1 or day 2. And if I'm gonna cast a ballot for anybody, give me Jeremy Bernard from Alabama. I mentioned I did an interview with Matt Miller, ESPN NFL draft analyst this week, and he's a big Niner fan. and I said, "Hey, Matt, what do you think of Jeremy Bernard?" And before I could even really get it out, he's like, "Oh man, he'd be perfect with the Niners. He'd be awesome with the Niners. Probably projected in round 2. That wouldn't be bad. You go O line or D line in round 1. You go Jeremy Bernard in round 2. Big time guy, and just move on. Just move on. Move on. There's what the one thing you should never do is belabor these receivers because these guys aren't Jerry Rice. You know, what I mean, come on. This if it was Jerry Rice, if it was Terrell Owens, if it was Randy Moss, then bemoan. You're bemoaning a guy who's pretty good, and that's about it. I mean, that's about it. He's pretty good. Is Brandon Aiyuk good? He's pretty good. He's pretty good. Is he like all time? No. Is he epic? Can he put the team on it? No. Talented receiver who's large, probably almost for sure going to be diminished, and there's some percentage chance that he never plays again. I mean, that's how crushing that injury was. All right. Thanks to Sleeper for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show as well. And thanks to our good friends at Plank. This is a 49er practice update, technically, because the Niners practiced on a Saturday, and we don't talk about, we do Plank for our Niner, recap shows or recap videos, and that's today. So today's recap video is brought to you by our good friends at Plank, the 50,000 square foot entertainment eatery at Jack London Square in Oakland. Plank just opened the Hub, which is a really cool brand new sports viewing space with a massive 30-foot media wall. They've got over 70 TVs. It's the ultimate spot to watch every game. Really cool spot. Enjoy incredible food, specialty cocktails. Their huge 15,000 square foot outdoor beer garden. That's right. They got about 30 beers on tap. It's an awesome spot. Plus, bring the kids. They'll love the bowling. They've got 12 lanes of bowling. They've got bocce. They've got arcade games. It's really cool. It's in Jack London Square. And right now, Krug Show listeners get 15% off bowling, games, food, and non-alcoholic drinks through the end of November. Just mention that I sent you when you go in there. And also, it's the perfect place to host your holiday party this year, whether it's for friends, family, or your team at work. So how do you check them out? Well, go to plankoakland.com. Once again, that's plankoakland.com. Plank Oakland.com. Plank Oakland. You're going to love Plank. Check them out. And thanks to Plank for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. A couple other thoughts today before we get out of here on Kyle Shanahan, and he, a number of interesting things today. One, couple more thoughts as far as Aiyuk and the specifics. So if they release him post June 1st, it's a cap hit of $8 million in 2026 and a $21 million hit in 2027. If that's if they cut him after June 1st. If they cut him with if they cut him before June 1st. Then the dead cap is $29 million all at once. So, that's the thing. The 26 dead cap for Aiyuk is $29 million if they cut him before June 1st. Now, they may opt to. They got a bunch of money into the cap. Maybe they want to look at this year as the year they take the poison pill, or they can spread it over the next two caps with $8 million in next year and $21 million in 27. So those are the choices as far as pre-June 1st, post-June 1st. I mean, really what this does is it gives the 49ers tremendous financial flexibility. I mean, it really does, considering that Aiyuk is diminished beyond attitude and that whole thing. I mean, bad attitude that they kind of painting him as, I mean, whether he has that or not, I don't know. But, the bottom line is he's a diminished football player. And he, by the way, today uploaded a video of him going jewelry shopping. I mean, you got a voided contract. Let's go get a some overpriced bauble that's going to feed into my ego as I just lost my guaranteed contract. I mean, I know that's his way of saying I don't need it. I got more money. I got more money than I know what to do with. But good. I'm glad he feels that way because he really cost himself a lot of money today. And who knows if he'll get it back. He may get it back, and he may get it back in, double that what he lost, but I don't think so. I think he's going to wind up losing more than he gained. By the way, Aiyuk never plays another down for the Niners. He finishes his Niners career with 4,305 total receiving yards, making him 14th on the franchise's all-time list as far as receivers are concerned. Kyle was asked, hey, have you talked to Brandon? He's like, I'm not getting much dialogue just personally between him and I. So obviously something happened in July. We don't know what it is. They don't want to talk about it. But that's, I mean, that's the story. Basically, something happened in July. They decided to void the guaranteed money. I can't imagine that it's going to end in any other result other than he's going to be either traded or released in this offseason. And he's moving on, and they're going to move on. I mean, that's what it sounds like. Now, Shanahan also, they may not be a total lockstep within. This could be something that's being deemed from above by above Lynch and above Shanahan, by Parag and by Jed. Jed might have grabbed the financial reins away from these guys and just said, hey, no, we're going to recoup this money. And it's like, well, Jed, it's pretty dramatic if we're going to do that. We're going to do this and that. And he's like, I don't care. We're recouping that money. I mean, it could be something that was done to Shanahan and Lynch, not necessarily by Shanahan and Lynch. Just something to keep in mind. A couple other notes from the Niners today. Kyle Shanahan gave us the injury report. Bethune is out with the ankle. Pinheiro is out with the hamstring. Beal is doubtful in the concussion protocol, and Luke Gifford is questionable with a hip/neck injury. As far as last week's game, tying up a couple of loose ends, Trey McBride was fined $14,000 for that slime gesture last Sunday in Arizona against the Niners. I mean, that's just ridiculous. You're going to take $14,000 out of this guy's pocket for that gesture? I mean, that's just wrong. That's wrong on every level. And then Curtis Robinson was fined $6,500 for his hip drop tackle. Now, I don't like that either, but at least you could claim player safety. $14,000 from Trey McBride for a slime? $14,000? Buy a used car with $14,000 for a slime gesture? Really? The slime that's worth $14,000? Doesn't seem right. Definitely doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem right at all. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Plank Oakland for sponsoring this 49er report. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.